Ready as I'll ever friggin' be. Frig off, Randy.
Magic 8 Ball, what's my question? Son of a... Can't say now. Okay, I'll come up with my own. Magic 8 Ball, our single-player game's dying.
It's not going to talk to you then.
Consult me later. No! I want to consult you now! Alright. Chances aren't freaking good.
Magic 8 Ball. Will I have to poop at the end of the podcast? Positively.
Oh, snap.
Interesting.
I was going to kiss you, but your ball.
Please do.
Okay, Magic 8 Ball. Is this podcast ever going to get popular? And, kiss for good luck.
Gotta snack it, I told you.
Don't hold back on me.
This is stupid.
Will I ever be popular? No doubt about it.
Peter.
I can almost do it better.
Hey, Peter. Hey, Peter. Hey, Peter. Hey, Peter. Who's your favorite
Don't
Muppet?
do that to me.
Hey, Peter. Who's your favorite Muppet? Skater.
Why can't I do that voice?
Skater. Hey,
just
Peter.
you're
hey,
in it.
Peter.
He's that bad.
Hey, Peter. Hey, Peter. Where are the other trucks going? Hey, Peter. Hey, Peter.
Oh, hey there, Batman.
Yes, it's me.
Isn't your name actually Bruce?
How did you know that?
That was actually pretty good, Batman.
Thank you.
What faces?
Where are the other trucks going?
I swear to God. You gotta do that. Like, where did I learn that from? I think those
Isn't it College Humor?
or
I wanna say?
Kiyomasu.
God.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
College Humor.
Yeah, and college. I think it's the college when he's
It's
like,
the college humor.
"What face
yeah.
is this face?
Harvey face.
What face is this?"
Yeah.
Scary.
Oh, and he's like,
Is it a small boy's Sunday trousers? How about a small boy's Sunday trouser? Helicopter. Is it helicopter?
Now I want to watch that.
Just for the record, you should make your riddles more easier to understand. It's less confusing that way.
Oh, shoot! What's his?
"Is this the bum mic stand?"
Name?
It's kind of
kind of freaking out on you.
yeah. It keeps dropping.
Just twist that thingy,
which one? This one?
Keep dropping,
down.
just keep dropping. Everybody.
or maybe
turn
twist that other
da, da, da.
thing.
This thing?
Last night I had a dream about getting older.
I think that's better.
Maybe if I wasn't stuck in my own head, then I
Yeah.
could trust you more with this.
Tell me.
Now I
do you
wanna,
mind thinking of me?
now I wanna write some metal and just scream my heart
I'm
out.
growing so disturbed. Nothing makes sense to me anymore. Can't explain what's come over me.
Hey, Peter. Hey, Peter.
Nice Creed.
Can't explain
Or
what's come over me.
come over me.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
And all this is true.
I don't wanna be with you.
Isn't
That's
that
like one
Hootie
of my
and the
favorite things
Blowfish?
to do. Yeah, Hootie and the Blowfish. That's one of my favorite things to do is take a song and creedify it.
Can we just have him beatbox while we talk?
No.
Do it.
It's like spoken word, but
Do
it's
it.
not.
Do it.
All right,
Start
guys,
beat-
we're gonna
just
do
go.
some spoken word. And then
Start
he starts
beatboxing.
beatboxing, and we just start talking.
Yeah. There's flowers in the field, and I see golden locks shaking like there's a force to be reckoned with, a force that is beyond our consumption. There is something to be said for all the things that are flowing within this field of flowing flowers like golden hairs on this beautiful bride. She is pure. She is perfect. There are things that are going down that we cannot understand, like the powers that be.
Did you realize I was just doing the Pokemon battle?
I did not catch that. That's
Really?
great. That's awesome.
Go back and listen.
That was gold.
I will.
I didn't hear any of your words because I was so focused on whatever. But I can't
I know,
wait
I
to,
did too. I
can't wait to rehear that.
I was like, what do I do? And that was just
Wait,
like,
please tell me you were recording that.
I absolutely was.
Okay,
oh
good.
gosh.
That was great.
Is that gonna be
I loved your
intro?
beat. It was just like so jumpy and like, what?
Can you move your mic closer to you?
Can you also bring me my coffee?
I don't think I can possibly get closer than this.
Alright, perfect.
Is it in my face?
Can you bring my
I can't
coffee?
see.
Can you get my coffee?
I'm super sweaty.
That's gross.
I want to fix that.
How about not sweaty?
You might want to fix that.
How about picking up the trash, putting some clothes on,
I
And not sweating.
just showered, so
Oh, I know
I
that
like
feeling.
to-
You
I
just
like-
get out and you're still hot.
it's so steamy.
Can you hear me okay?
Getting so steamy in here.
Jay, can you hear me okay from right
I
here?
can hear you.
Wisconsin
Great.
Communication Arts.
Do you know what I was watching
I should have got a
yesterday?
religious studies version of that.
That would be awesome.
I was watching yesterday that like I genuinely enjoyed.
What?
No.
It was episodes of Lazy Town, but it was only clips with Robbie Rotten.
Robbie Rotten.
He genuinely is like a great
Sportiflop.
Who did you I never showed you the original.
What did you expect? Sportiflop. Who did you expect?
Wicca, Robbie Rotten.
Robbie Rotten.
So it's like it's like 2:30. Should we
Sounds
get started?
great.
We gotta get going.
It's like 2:30.
It sounds great
It's
when
like
it clips.
2:30.
we gotta
Wait,
get to
hold on,
swaggy
hold on.
peas.
Oh gosh. Oh,
What up, party
Oh,
people?
Can this be our opening clip?
we're clipping so hard.
I know.
What up, party people? I'm opening with that.
Party people.
I know. Wait,
Party
here.
people.
Wait. Here. I found it. It's funnier when you don't hear the sound. You can't see what's happening.
Robbie Rotten.
Is this a TV show?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
It's like a
Lazy
kids show from Nickelodeon back.
Robbie
in the day.
Rotten.
Robbie.
Robbie Rotten.
Okay,
It says I'm
I
clipping,
just
but
spit
feel
all
like
over
I'm not
this
that
fricker.
loud. Maybe.
dude. What is with the stand?
Okay.
My stando
Let's
is.
get going.
Are we
broken.
starting this?
Fart
Oh,
lead-
you want me to start
lead-
it?
I just said fart leading.
Fart leading.
Start fart leading.
What up, party people? Welcome back to the Pop Culture Punks podcast with your host Phil and your boys Josh and Zach.
Mm-hmm.
Here to represent. We're here with some large
And in charge.
opinions,
There I am.
some big hearts, and empty bladders. All right, let's get started.
That won't be for too long though.
Yeah,
huh?
no, absolutely not. I just had coffee. This week we will be discussing the death of single-player gaming.
They're not dead.
Dun, dun, dun.
Our God's not
That's what you
dead.
think.
He surely
Oh,
alive.
Get out of here with that.
I just brought a
Before,
religious
before you
level.
tell your stories, I'm gonna hijack it.
Wait,
So
I need to interrupt too. I'm also
What?
sick this weekend, so if I sound a little off, that's because I'm
And if
recovering
anybody,
from a cold.
if any of our listeners get sick because of Zach,
we apologize.
we apologize in
Yeah,
advance.
you can email me any death threats or whatever. I'll take them in stride.
I'll take.
I will allow them to strengthen me.
Oh gosh.
It's over
All right.
9,000.
So
stab on
the story, the story behind these small gifts is Gloria and I had to go to the mall the other day.
Small gifts like
Yes.
moving pictures.
So anyway,
Get it?
I've never gone in that store, but it looks cool.
well, it closed, and it's shutting down, and they had a getting rid of everything inventory sale.
Uh-oh.
So we went in, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of fun." So they had calendars that
Is this
were
inappropriate?
No,
Okay.
they had calendar.
Dude, give me that risque male model calendar.
Here's my fireman poster.
fireman poster.
Gotta call it a fireman. We're gonna get a spank.
All right, sorry. Continue.
God.
South Park.
Just remembering. So anyway, so we went in and we were looking at stuff, and I was like, "Oh, there's a bunch of dope calendars." And I was like, "Hey, wife, can I get Phil and Zach joke calendars? Because it'd be funny, and I could talk about it on the show." And she's like, "Yes." So I
Well,
found
she sounded not
calendars
really
that
into
are these actually aren't that funny. I think they're actually pretty great because I know you guys decently enough. So I'll
Yeah,
do
we don't
Zach
take
first.
jokes very well either.
So Zach, I have a Legend of Zelda 2018 calendar. So it's got a whole bunch of art stuff.
You should have done it
Oh
the
my
opposite.
gosh.
So we're like, why did you give me the Zelda one? And
I
him
thought
whatever
about
you
it.
gave me?
Oh my
Well, see,
gosh.
here's
And
the
then
thing
force
is,
us to
I
switch.
kind of want to. I'm debating of whether or not to give you mine because I know you really like cats, but I want to take mine to work.
I like whatever I see more than
Okay.
cats. So.
Okay, and then I got Philip a Pokemon theme,
Oh.
Aw.
and I think it's
Oh,
by
it's got Togedemaru on my birthday.
yeah,
Let's
and
go.
I think it's designed by
Togedemaru.
like
Plug in the mud. Let's
Oh my gosh. Let's
So
go.
it's-
Dude, these are
And then-
legitimately
Got
sweet.
Derpy Meowth,
yeah
and then he evolves into like
derpier.
derpier version, freaking mentally
Persian.
deprived
Derpy
person.
Mirth.
And then
Derpy
mine that I bought for
Merpy
myself for work since I do video
Oh,
stuff
that
is
is-
I bought
oh,
it's
gosh.
Academy Awards 18th month calendar of famous movie posters changed into cats.
Dude, I wish I had. I want to get
Wow.
that for my brother. 'Cause
Yeah,
he
you
loves.
should
he
look at
loves
some of
cat
these.
things, and he
It's-
loves movies.
I'm not that I hate cats, but my family was a dog family, so we didn't have cats growing up. But I saw that and I was like, that is fantastic.
That
It fits
Oh
so
my
perfectly
God.
with what I want on my desk. Yeah, some of them are pretty.
That is
This
great.
is so awesome.
thanks, man. This is dope.
These are like legit. I thought you were gonna be
Yeah,
like,
this
hey, I
is
got
legit.
you like.
You said it was a joke, but this ain't a joke. This is real.
I know these are really.
Pokemon's
There's more
not a
joke because
joke.
it's like stupid. It's like a stupid thing of like, why would I?
For real though, I've been
Find this,
I've been
so.
wanting to have a calendar.
There you
So
go.
this made my day.
And I mean,
I think we
like
just
getting-
end the podcast here. I go home, hang this baby up.
Friends, you can check out our podcast at iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, Google Play, and we will see you next week.
And there's a new platform we're
later,
streaming on.
fuckos.
My butt.
All right, back to business. I got some stories to tell people.
business.
Okay, so
Hit us with it.
you know how I went to Seinfeld on Friday?
Oh
You
yeah.
did go to Seinfeld
Yeah.
on Friday.
Hilarious show, by the way.
Good.
But that's not what I'm telling you. So I went to that show and we were driving down, and it was at the Overture. But in my mind, I called it the Orpheum. So on the way there, me and Evan are having this conversation, like, "Oh, we want to see the Orpheum," and she's like, "Where's the Orpheum?" I'm like, "I think it's like connected to that museum, like the big, nice glass building." And she's like, "I don't think that's the Orpheum. I think the Orpheum is like that movie theater thing." And I'm like, "Oh, you're right." And so we get to campus, and we go to the Orpheum, and we're in line, and the crowd is like metalheads. Like there's people lined up. And we're like in line. Evan's like, what's going on? And this guy comes down. He's like selling Marilyn Manson shirts, and I'm like, why are they selling Marilyn Manson shirts at a Jerry Seinfeld show? And I didn't register at first. And I look down. I just like look down the aisle, and it's like all these dudes with like black hair and skull shirts and like chains and stuff. I'm like, something's fishy here.
I don't.
And
think we're
Evan's
in
like, and
Seinfeld
I just start walking to the front. And Evan's like, Phil, where are you going? Where are you going? I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll tell you later. And I'm like, because I didn't want to make a scene in front of all these like intense
Goth
people.
kids.
So I'm like walking up to the front, and I see a sign that says Marilyn Manson Friday night, 7 p.m. I'm like, okay, what's
Oops.
going on here? Because Seinfeld's supposed to be here. And then I'm feeling really weird because there's all these people looking at me, looking really confused and like normal looking. And so I go back to Evan. I'm like, I don't think this is the right place. And then we realized it was actually at the Overture Center.
Did you just shout out into the crowd, "Where's Jerry Seinfeld?"
That's why I like just went away without telling Evan, because I didn't want to like make it known that we were confused. So I just like started walking. I'm like, she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it."
What were you worried about? They're gonna like beat you up because you went there for Marilyn Manson.
Like, hey, he's here for Jerry.
Jerry.
But
Wrong
there was a
Jerry.
Marilyn Manson concert apparently.
Yes, there was.
last
I
night.
actually didn't know that.
Yeah. So we went to see Jerry, which was fun. But that's our funny story about that.
Do you remember one of his funniest jokes?
Oh my gosh. So he was talking about the postal service.
What's the deal with airmail?
Well, he
doesn't
was
get
like,
anywhere.
he was like, why do we call email? What is similar about a giant system of fiber optic wires sending mail through like this complex like system of whatever, and then people driving around in like, I think he called them short buses. People driving around, like people wearing goofy shorts, right? Walking around delivering letters to people's houses in short buses or something.
no.
And he's like, what is going on here? Why is this being compared to this? And then he's like, and then every year the Postmaster General gets on TV and tells us how bad the post office is doing and how whatever, how financially in trouble they are. And then he's like, and now, because of that, we're raising the stamp 1 cent. And he's like, 1 penny? What? And then he's like, just raise it to $1. Then you can go buy yourself some new pants and new cars.
That's awesome.
He's like, nobody here even knows how much a stamp costs.
That's
just raise
funny.
it to $1.
That's true.
So I'm
Very
obviously
true.
not telling the joke as funny as he did, but yeah, my gut hurt afterwards. It was funny.
That's awesome.
So
I feel like especially as comedians and other people, I feel like because our parents would show us Seinfeld, and we'd watch like the Soup Nazi skits and stuff like that. But
Still one of my. I think that's my favorite episode. Still,
to see some of those older comedians and to see them now, I think is like really weird. And
also, he's 63 years old.
yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's so weird.
Because when I saw Jeff Dunham a couple weeks, I didn't realize he's like pushing 50, 60 too.
that's crazy.
But they don't look like it at all. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But still,
Apparently,
he's
he's been
doing
married
their
for
thing.
18. He got married when he was 45.
Wow.
He's been married for 18 years and has 3 kids.
Wow.
And one of them's still little. He's 63.
That's
so I was surprised.
crazy.
But yeah, he had a lot of jokes about that, and he
Yeah,
was just
yeah.
complaining about things. It was pretty
Yeah.
funny. And then my other story, second story, I've been playing Pokemon Crystal, and I wanted to catch a Fanpy because Fanpy is available like right at the beginning in Pokemon Crystal, like on Route 46 in that little building there. And so and he's only available in the mornings, and so that means I have to get up at like 7 a.m. to catch Fanpy before
Or
work.
just change your clock time.
Well, you could do
On
that.
the
That's
DS.
too complicated.
That's cheating.
That's too complicated.
You can't
So-
change time. You're not God. I didn't think it was that funny.
So I get up at 7 a.m. to catch a Pokemon, and I'm sitting there in my freaking boxers playing Pokemon Crystal, like sitting on Evan's piano bench. I'm not even like ready for the day yet. This is the first thing I'm doing is trying to catch a Pokemon. And I find a Fanpy. I hit him. He hits me. I hit him again. He flees. I'm like, okay, I didn't realize Pokemon could just run away from me in these games. And so I spent another 10 minutes trying to find one because he's got like a 5% hit catch rate or whatever. So I find the second one, hit him. He hits me. I hit him. Or I chucked a Pokeball because I was like, I'm not taking my chance. He shakes 3 times, breaks out. I'm like, okay. And then he runs. So I'm like, okay, I already wasted a half an hour. I got to go to work. And so the third one, I critical hit him. So it brings his health down to like 25%. And then I finally caught him. Nice. So that's my story of me playing Pokemon Crystal in my boxers at 7 a.m. I thought
there's gonna be a fun twist of Evan coming in being like, she just took my Game Boy from me. And
that
was
would
like,
be funny. The
like,
thing
you're
is,
not
I had to
playing-
tell her about it the next day or something. I didn't have to, but I did because
Yeah.
it was funny.
You want to be honest. You want to be open.
I want to be open about
As her-
these things.
as her
Like,
husband.
Hey, Evan, it was 7 a.m. I was in my boxers and I was playing Pokemon.
She's like,
like,
Phil, you
As
disgust
one
me.
does.
You are a
Shame on you.
disgusting human being.
Shame
And
on
if your
you.
wife, and
Philip.
if the lady you like can still appreciate you after seeing you in that state, in your boxers, playing Pokemon,
Then it's meant
trying
to
to
be.
catch a Fanpy, it's meant to be.
Yep, exactly. So I caught Fanpy finally, and now he's level 10. So
Attaboy.
That
Well
day,
done.
that was like one of the greatest days ever. After I
Nice.
caught Fanpy,
Dude, some of those Pokies are so freaking hard to catch. It's ridiculous.
especially when they run away. Like
Oh, yeah.
I can handle not running away, but the fricker kept fleeing.
The
at me.
little fricker.
little fricker. So yeah,
scooting.
those are my funny stories.
Nice.
It looks like you had a question for us on here.
I did.
Little ice,
So I was-
a little ice breaky action.
It was
A little break action.
I was scoping around Kotaku.com the other day just because I like to check they have like more fun articles than just straight news. And this one dad had written an article called "My Son Has Ruined Zelda Breath of the Wild for Me." And the whole premise of the story was that his like 5-year-old, 4-year-old son asked him if he could use his save file,
No.
like the dad's save file.
No.
So
Frick no.
So this is what happened. So he's like, yeah, sure, of course. And so he said he would log back in to his game, and all his rare arrows, his stuff would always be changed. He'd lose all
Always
his
be
critical
changed.
things.
He did this many times.
Yeah, so he would know
This
when
guy's
his
insane.
son played it. So his whole thing was like, yeah, but I just love that my son can play my game. But then the whole article is about him complaining about his son screwing up his files.
Tell the
love that
little
my
kid to
son's
buy
good.
his own dang Switch.
No, I love that. It's
You
like,
can work for your own Switch.
You're like, I love my son. I'm so glad he's good, you guys. But by golly, if he's gonna keep using my Switch like that.
But legit, it was one of those things where I was like, dude. Well, and then I was reading through the comments, and people were like, oh, yeah, I could see that too. And because his whole ideology was for the time it would take my 4-year-old son to get all the stuff that I have and do all that, then, well, you know, I'll just let him play and enjoy the game from where I am.
Tough crap.
But there are a lot of people.
Gotta teach him hard work.
Yeah, well, that was.
You
that
want
was
something,
the
you
thing.
gotta work for it.
Do you know what? In reality, that almost would be more beneficial because in today's society, stuff gets handed to their kids. Sorry, getting all political here, but but if you think about it, it'd almost be more beneficial psychologically to be like, "Hey, here's this game, check it out," and then the kid's got to learn for himself how to play it rather than.
I mean,
have
I
everything-
agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
Oh,
But
because that was the
his-
question you had, right?
Yeah,
Was-
so this was the interesting thing. Is his ideology was it would take forever to, you know, for his son to get all that stuff. But in my brain, that logically didn't make sense because first off, he's a 4-year-old kid. He's not scouring the internet for how do I unlock the Guardian armor set.
Yeah, the
Breath
dude
of the
has no
Wild.
idea what he's
He has
doing.
no idea what he's doing. He's just so his whole story was he wasted all my Guardian arrows on Boko goblins, which in the game the Guardian arrows are stupid expensive. They're really rare and hard to find.
They do a lot of
and
damage.
Boko goblins are literally the thing that you can like throw a stick at and they die.
Yeah.
And so his whole complaint was, "Yeah, you wasted all my arrows on the weakest enemy in the game."
Could you imagine him like sitting in they're like sitting in the living room? He's like, "Oh, and like shoots arrows." Like, no, idiot!
What are you doing?
Oh gosh, that's
Sorry,
a sad
that.
story.
Yeah, no, it's
Sorry if I
fine.
clipped in the microphone.
That's fine.
That's a sad story.
Yeah, well, so it spawned this question, which is, in the future, obviously none of us are close to having kids unless, Phil, I don't know if you have any. Okay.
You don't know that. Kidding.
Interesting. So,
I just want attention, okay?
anyway, so in the future, we'll say about 10 years from now, when you have a small child, and your child is about the same age, would you,
4 or 5.
4 or 5, would you be the dad and would you let your child play on your game save, or would you make them start from scratch and they have to figure their own crap out?
Start from scratch. No
Neither.
question.
I would make them buy their own Switch and play it.
Dang.
You
You're
gotta
gonna mow the lawn. You're gonna
You're gonna mow the lawn 3 times a week.
You're gonna do the dishes 3 times a week. There'd be no grass.
Dad, there's no grass to mow.
Get back out there.
Keep mowing.
You want your
You want
dollar?
to switch? You mow the lawn.
You want your $1.50? You're gonna mow that lawn.
Dad, that's not even minimum wage.
Child labor, son. It's a harsh world out
Wait,
there.
how'd you know about minimum wage? Did you talk to your mother again?
Dude, you know Evan would totally rat you out too. She'd be like, "Go tell your dad that it's not minimum wage." You're like, "Dad, Mama says that that's not the minimum wage."
Evan.
For real though,
Try
I
to
wouldn't.
teach the boy.
So what would, for both of you, I completely agree, but what for each of you would be maybe your one of the many points that you might make? What would be the one big reason why you would not?
Okay. Can I go first?
Sure. Sure.
No.
All right, go for it, Bill. Just steal the show.
No, you can go. That's fine. I suppose I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
I'm going to allow this.
Sustained.
My big point is that I put a lot of work and a lot of effort, and at that time I'll probably be working, 40 hours a week, putting in my time, and I just want to go home, play my game, and I don't want to have the extra stress of if my son or daughter ruined all my progress that I put into.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that jokingly. I think my point for that is to say, I want my kids to experience gaming for sure. I definitely probably when my kids turn 5 or 6, introduce them to a Game Boy Advance. Definitely want to give them my Game Boy Advance or something. Or someone peeing over there.
It's picking up on the mic. It's like
That's great. I was
literally
hoping it
sounds like
would.
someone's peeing in the corner. That's awkward.
We should have made it seem like somebody was.
Yeah. Hey. Oh,
Not again!
get out of here.
There's a bathroom.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
I hear that.
Yeah. Where was I going to go with that?
Oh yeah.
You done?
Oh yeah. Just about there. Just about there.
Oh, you're the peer. I've been peeing this whole
I
day.
figured I'd do it now instead
Do
of
it
wait until the end.
Don't
Yeah,
do it
true.
during the podcast. Do it before or after.
Because every other time you're peeing at the end of it, so
I figured I'd just get it over
just
with.
pee in the middle. That makes sense.
Pee in the.
I get behind that.
It's hot. Bear Grylls up in here.
Very good, Phil.
Drinking my own steaming urine.
Man in the wilderness.
Man in the woods.
Is it necessary for me to drink my own pee?
No, but it's sterile and I like the taste.
Oh, what is that from?
Dodgeball.
That's right.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
All right, ladies.
So were you done with your answer?
I forgot where I was because you were talking about urine.
You were saying how coming home from work, you're gonna be putting in all this progress. You want to get your
the
kids.
jokey thing. I want to introduce my kids to gaming. Not super early. I think 4 is honestly like a little too young. 5 or 6, I would say, is a good time to introduce like simple stuff. I definitely want to do that for my kids, but it's gonna be definitely games that either I'm not playing currently, or if it's a game that has multiple save states. So like if it's a Mario game or something, like I'm gonna do a separate one and be like, okay, this is yours and this is how you do it. Because honestly, that gives them more of a sense of like ownership, I feel like. Maybe if they don't recognize it at first, that's how I see it, is that I'm letting my kid, sorry, my pop filter.
So good.
Bumping the microphone. It gives my kids the opportunity to be like, this is my game. I'm playing it. I'm beating it. Because like with that story, I don't want my kids to have all the stuff at the top of the thing and then just have them go crazy, have fun. I want them to learn. I want them to fight through it. Because I think back in our day when we had games and stuff, like we were awful at them, and we tried super hard to beat them. But in the end, it was still fun, even though we sucked at them. It was just the playing of them that was really fun. We weren't really trying to like progress and get certain stuff. Mm-hmm. So I see it as like it doesn't really hurt me or my kid to not let them play on my save file. And if anything, it hurts more because it's like they don't get to like do trial and error and kind of learn that way. That's how gaming works. Also, they might screw up my stuff, and I don't want them taking my stuff. So,
Shooting all my
guardian arrows out.
I remember back in the day playing Pokemon. For some reason, they still haven't figured out that you should put multiple saves on a cartridge.
Yeah.
But I remember back in the day, I've lost many saves to my brothers because they overwrite the save.
Hey, didn't that happen one time, Josh?
You did that to my Wind Waker save.
Yep.
In GameCube.
Yeah.
And
I was so mad.
I know, and I was scared. I ran crying to mom, being like, it was almost like Christmas story when he's like, "Daddy's gonna kill Ralphie."
Except I was gonna kill you.
I was like, "Josh's gonna kill me."
Well, because it was one of those things where I was asleep I was still sleeping. It was like a Saturday morning, and my mom comes in. She's like, "Josh, I need to tell you something." And I was like, "What?" I don't know how this happened, but apparently Zach deleted your Zelda. What? What do you? So it was like,
that's a way to wake up on.
Yeah.
A
So I was livid because it was one of those things too where it wasn't just like I was in the first hour or something and you like, oh, you deleted my save. I'd just gotten past the Dragon Roost, or not the Dragon Roost Island, the part in the game where you're at the
forest
Ganon
island,
is, or the fortress, and you have to sneak by all the pig goblin guys. I had just beaten that after like
that was the first level of the game.
I know, but that was back when we still couldn't beat it, and I
I think you were farther than that. Honestly,
Probably.
I think you had beaten like 2 dungeons or something, which for a kid that's like
crazy.
It's funny because
I've
actually been playing Wind Waker, and like I remember us playing the first dungeon and being like, "Oh, this is hard."
Yeah.
This is so difficult.
I pretty game.
Hurry, crap!
Oh my god!
But I like breezed through it in 10 minutes, and it's funny to think that as a kid that took like hours or years. But yeah. So that's my thing. I want my kids to learn. I want them to experience the game like from their own like from scratch on their own, so that it's almost like a more immersive experience. I feel like, because then they get to learn that's how games are, is that they don't present you with everything right away. Mm-hmm. You got to work for it.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So
yeah, I feel like for me, depending on what game system it is, I'll buy my kid their own and let them play their own. Probably for the same reason that as a kid, I liked being able to experience things from the ground up, and so it'll teach them that. I'll probably start them off with Dark Souls to teach them that life's not fair.
It'll just beat you down, and
you want a game system, you're gonna get a game
or
system.
Start them off with Battlefront 2, showing them that money is the thing that rules this world.
Money is the root of all evil, son. Learn it hard. Don't buy any of that crap. So
I hear that.
Yeah.
I think I agree with both of you. I think for me, it was just funny because his logic seemed so flawed in the sense that he's a kid. 4-year-olds don't know anything.
I
So
know,
for me
yeah,
to
it's
be like,
he doesn't care.
oh
if I,
well, he can use all the stuff that he'd get. He can have more fun in the game. It's like, no, he doesn't know any
he's
better.
not
He's
gonna-
like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, I'm playing a video game. He's not like, oh man, I'm playing Breath of the Wild and I'm using the legendary gear set. That's
about to say,
crazy.
He's not old enough yet to understand the attribute of value to
Correct.
a certain thing.
yeah,
So.
exactly.
I mean, hence by all the stuff that he was complaining about losing because he was playing it, which to me either is a teaching moment to be like, son, the guardian arrows are for the guardians. The regular arrows are for the regular things. Okay, Dad.
uses guardian arrow to kill the
yeah, right.
Shoots at a deer.
I'm just like imagining the kid sitting there with bow drawn. Son, that's the wrong arrow. Okay, Dad. Slowly turns.
No, still wrong.
No, son, no.
That'd be a fun clip to make an animated version of, like a father and son in Hyrule. So
Oh,
he's like, no,
gosh.
you got to use the guardian arrows against the guardians, not against the. You used it, hunt. Okay.
Tomorrow, we'll start tomorrow. That's funny.
Cool.
Good
That
question.
was all I got.
Good question.
Kids
that's
are
pretty.
dumb.
That's pretty. Yeah, kids are dumb. They're cute, but they're dumb.
They are.
Yeah, they don't know how to play video games.
I think that's what confuses me about modern parents sometimes. Like being so I was at the Wilderness this weekend for like a company business trip thing. So Gloria and I were in the arcade for like 2 hours yesterday night, just goofing around and.
See, that's
trying
the
win
way to
tickets.
learn. You send
It
him in
was
the
fun.
arcade.
Yeah, you send
5 years old. Get in there and win me something.
Give me that big stuffed dragon on there.
My love is proved by works.
You don't come out with that dragon. You're driving yourself home.
You see how many tickets that's worth? Win it.
Oh my!
You're gonna be a winner.
You want to play Pokemon tonight? You buy me that dragon.
Real quick, that reminds me of that Bob's Burgers quote when she's Linda's talking about how much Luis loves Bob more than her, and she was like, it's Luis when she's a baby. She's like, say mama, dada, no, mama, dada, mama, dada, dada. He's like, you know what? Change your own diaper.
Oh gosh, but that was one of the strange things seeing is I think parents think their kids are smarter than they are, and I think it leads to all sorts of chaos that is could be very much avoided if they just were like, no, you're 4, you don't know anything, shut up. Not in that way.
That's mean.
I don't approve that. But
That's
I
how you
approve-
think, but
I
that's not
approve
how you
of the
tell them.
sentiment. You say, Johnny, you're 4. We can't do this right now. But why? Because you're 4 and it costs money and we don't have time and we got to go because Grandma Joe is over in the bus and blah, blah, blah.
Grandma Joe.
Exactly. They don't know about Grandma Joe. They didn't even know Grandma Joe
Grandma
was on
Joe
the trip.
Bubkiss.
Bubba J.
Bubba J.
That's
Yeah.
my big toe.
That's a good question, though.
Yeah.
Hard one. Good
Yes.
one. Hard
What?
one.
That's my big
Tough
toe.
love.
That's a good question.
What is
That's
Oh
my big toe.
my
Good question.
gosh.
Yeah.
my big toe?
Good question. Good question.
Yes.
So I put a
Let's
disclaimer
go.
on here. That
Disclaimer. Viewer discretion is advised.
Viewer discretion advised. A lot of opinions are forthcoming. Now, the disclaimer is mostly that other than like Splatoon and Overwatch with you guys, none of us are like heavy into multiplayer gaming.
Correct.
So our opinions are...
They're going to lean.
Our opinions are strongly against
invalid.
multiplayer gaming, and so it might come off that way. But that's
Yes.
just who we are.
Yes.
So I just wanted to clarify what position we're coming from. But to start off, I figured we'd start off with the hard question. Actually, the overall question is: are single player games dying? Go in the way of the Buffalo.
And real quick, if I can just add into all of our critiques, I want to be better about this because I know I got some joking flack, but some flack about the Destiny hate. I have no problem if you like Destiny. I have no problem if you like any game that we discuss or that we might criticize. It's all like our subjective opinion.
Yeah.
But I hope that when you hear our side of it, that it's at least you can be like, I don't agree and I'm still going to play it, but like I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Because I never want to just say like, oh, Disney sucks. Because that's all the internet trolls on game forums
Yeah.
and comment sections. Like,
Exactly.
Destiny's just dumb and all the people who play are dumb. It's like, no, I think it's a good game in certain aspects, but the certain aspects that I don't think it's
Yeah.
good for, I also see implications for the rest of the industry,
Yeah.
and that's like what drives the criticism.
Exactly.
So in our criticism of multiplayer games, that if we, sound a little more negative towards it, we're always going to try and do our best, and we're going to hold each other accountable during the conversation to be better about making it clear that like,
And there's a distinction between criticizing something and criticizing people who like playing that thing.
correct,
Right.
correct.
Well, and I
So-
think even every time we present a game too, we try our best to show the positives and the negatives.
Yeah.
And even if we are praising something, like I think all three of us are capable of, because we talked about this with a lot of stuff before, not even just games, but like movies and TV shows. There is a sense of that even if you wanna form a good opinion, you should know the negatives of your thing that you like, and like be prepared to take on the forthcoming like arguments or forthcoming like stuff that people can point out and be like, well, that's bad, and you don't want to be like, no, even though they're right. You know, you
Yeah.
want to be able to not conform per se, but like
Address it.
yeah, address the problems that are present, and that you can willingly admit that something you like is flawed. And I think that's, if anything, I remember I heard this from one of my favorite YouTube channels, ironically called I Hate Everything. Really interesting dude if you want to watch a guy analyze movies and stuff. He's a really good film critic. He was saying that, like, if anything, your love for something is more apparent when you're able to acknowledge its flaws yet still appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. You should always be able to defend. I mean, you don't have to. It's video games. Do whatever the heck you want. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to be able to respond to critiques, even if it's something that's like your favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, and not start a
Which is
fight
kind of
over
what
it
we
either.
try and do here. But we all tend to have the same opinions about most things.
Yeah.
true.
I usually agree with you guys, but at the same time, like I'm always like thinking about what other people would be thinking. And so I try and like inject other opinions, but usually I agree with you. So it's like, yeah, I also don't
Definitely.
like Destiny
We haven't gotten
and
into
whatever.
any fist fights yet over
Yeah,
One of these days.
something.
yeah, maybe the Tilt Brigade.
Yeah, dude.
We won't
we'll
do that
bring it
one for a
back.
while. We
Yeah.
gotta
wait
next week
for
we'll
it.
do a happy topic so we can be posy. Stay posy, boys.
Stay positive.
Hey, Posy.
So yeah, with that disclaimer out of the way, like I said, the question is, are single player games dying? And I'm pretty sure I know all of our opinion about that. So I wanted to start with the harder question, is that what are arguments for the fact that it is dying? Or in what ways might it be becoming less popular or becoming less in the limelight or something?
Sure. I
So
guess
if you guys have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I think initial thoughts is there's a strange shift that happened, I think, once the original Xbox was launched, where before that there were, I think, some internet-based things that games had. So there's like Phantasy Star
Yeah.
Online, and there were some other games that had internet functionality, but they weren't quote-unquote multiplayer games, or it was flawed to some capacity that, unlike today's modern multiplayer games are, online specifically. And we should also make the distinction, when we say multiplayer, we mean multiplayer online. So we're not
Yeah.
saying Mario Kart. Mario Kart is a multiplayer game.
Super Smash
but,
Bros.
or Smash Bros.
Or even like
other
couch co-op
shooters.
like Halo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
exactly.
Halo's also an
is
online
considered
multiplayer
an
game,
online
yeah.
multiplayer game.
So multiplayer is
So we'll try and make a distinction.
it's dependent on playing with other people online.
Yeah, the primary focus is playing online, whether with friends or strangers at a distance. So I think, so with that progression, there was a strange shift in making that the big thing, because in a way, it's an amazing concept that I don't have to be in the same room as someone, and I can, we can
it's
plug in
revolutionary
headsets.
in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. You can plug in a headset. I can be playing with some dude in Europe or Asia or down the street, and it's seamless. Like there's no crazy things happening. And from there, it just kind of grows, and technology gets better, games get better, developers get better. You have more interesting functionality, so you get things in games like Watch Dogs where people can invade your game while you're playing it. You have Far Cry 4, I think, was the only one that did it recently, where you and a bud can go battle like different settlements and stuff, that enemy settlements. There's
And GTA has stuff like that too, I think.
GTA Online has all that stuff, and
GTA
so
is crazy.
GTA is nuts.
I
but
think,
so
And Payday. Also. Payday's
and so I think to say that single player games are dying, I think in a way I don't know how to phrase this without sounding really pretentious. The sacredness of what a single player game is, I think is under fire. I don't think it's necessarily dying. I think it's
changing.
I think it's morphing.
It's a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there's all these single player games like Far Cry and stuff that have traditionally been like single player adventure games. And now they're slowly getting these injections of multiplayer experiences, which initially is kind of cool. But when you look at things like GTA 5, where it starts off as a single player, I mean, I think they had multiplayer in it as well, but it starts off as this big game, and they're supposedly supposed to be releasing single player DLC and all this stuff, but then all of a sudden it turns into basically just GTA Online, and you see the single player experience kind of getting trumped by
The
multiplayer experience, which makes more money.
Right.
Shark cards and the like.
I think that's the hard part, is that it's like people are more moving towards the multiplayer aspect because that's what's making money. And that was the one article I did read. I didn't really read too much of.
No, I mean, I didn't read all the articles. I just posted them.
Yeah.
I kind of like skimmed them and got gist of what people are saying and stuff. But
The one I found really interesting is, for me personally, I'm a huge RPG, like I've said before, JRPG fan, and Square Enix has made the majority of like my favorite games, like Chrono Trigger. You know, I was a big part in Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasies, and those have all been hugely single player oriented games and like playing through the narrative. But some representative from Square Enix president. Wow. Okay. So the president of Square Enix, of this company, on quote from a GameSpot article, is saying, "Gone are the days in which single player games were of primary status and multiplayer games secondary. Lately, multiplayer games have taken the lead, and it is standard for games to be designed for long-term play." And I think that is the thing, is that more people are leaning more towards like, I just want a game that I could play forever, versus a game that is maybe
it seems
shorter.
like it's more financial. Like, it seems like you're getting more bang for your buck.
Right.
Which is why I always liked Call of Duty, because it's like I could play this for
Forever.
2 years, 2 days worth of time total. I mean, obviously that adds up over time.
Right.
Like an hour a day over time.
Yeah.
But like,
And
you
also,
get your money's worth.
It's just weird that there is this trend of like, I think back in the day when like Chrono Trigger or Earthbound and like even, you know, Super Mario World and all those games, because I think like SNES era and stuff, because that's, I think, when Square Enix really started out as just Square. That was what people wanted. And like, I think multiplayer games are fun and everyone loved them. That's why, like, you know, the Nintendo, like the NES and the Super NES had, you know, multi-controller support, but there was still this focus on like, it is the gamer dude, the single guy, you know, relationship or not, single, the guy, like an individual person just playing through the game and enjoying the experience of it, versus nowadays people enjoy the group, people enjoy the getting together with my friends and doing these missions. I think more so the general populace loves that more than
and that's not necessarily to say that that's a bad thing. Like,
no,
I think it's just it's a shifting paradigm of like people. I think, at least back in the day, like when I was in the multiplayer is awesome mode, I think it was like, instead of looking at quality over quantity, it's kind of like, which games can I get the most time out of? Which games can I get the most time out of my $60? Whereas like, so like a BioShock, I would have never paid $60 for a BioShock, because it's like, oh, after like 8 hours, it's done. Why would I play that? But now it's like, it's kind of like every game has to have they call it like living ecosystem or whatever. Like the game needs to continue on and continue living as time moves on.
And I think it's interesting too in this discussion, and it's hard because we can't parse out every layer that's
we could do like
this.
5 podcasts on this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I think one of the things that's tough about shifts is, one, there's just in businesses in general, there's always shifts in technology, and then that drives trends, and then when a trend gets big, it just, people ride it out until literally they can't anymore, and then they shift to a new trend, and someone does something that's, you know, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if after the Switch and like what the Switch did, and, you know, if other companies start looking at making some form of like hybrid thing that's possible to do. You know, maybe it's kind of like with the Vita, where you can AirPlay, do like the streaming thing where you can play a PS4 game on your Vita. But then they make it a better experience at a distance, so you can actually be over at the library and log on and like play, you know, your PlayStation. But I think in addition to what you were saying, Z, is back then there wasn't the internet. There wasn't, you know, there was a fact that you just couldn't. I just think even developers, from a technology standpoint of creating a game, they
didn't have the intention of like, we're gonna have 4 or 5 people playing this game. At a time.
And then on top of it too, the factors of putting in the mechanics to then make that game last and make it progress and make it enticing to play, you know, with multiple people versus just yourself. So for example, Overwatch is designed to be more enticing to play with a couple people because it's such a team focused game. So
it's nice having people, you know.
Exactly. And, you know, and even from a skill standpoint too, it is a huge difference when I've played by myself versus playing with Zach and our younger cousin. Even just having the three of us who make up half the team, the three of us can coordinate and be like, all right, why don't you go tank? I'll go healer. You go this. And even if the rest of the team is semi-disjointed, as long as they're doing something, the three of us can just destroy because the other team is disjointed and all over the place. Or, I saw Ghost Recon on this list. Destiny, the same thing. It's designed to be enticing to play with other people because you get their skills, and it's a sweet system.
It's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's why, yeah,
I think that's the hard part is we might be coming across as like, and I think we may have been, even not just with Destiny, but just like multiplayer games of like, everyone just hops on like the multiplayer train and,
Well, I think it's frustrating from a gamer perspective because we love video games.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's frustrating to see AAA games going the way of multiplayer over single player.
Yeah, that's true.
And this is one of the other layers, is the implication of, I think that's what I get, that's why I get frustrated and I get really amped about stuff, is it's not necessarily the thing itself. It's not that Destiny does a certain thing in their game and that just boils my blood. It's rather instead the implications going forward of, single player games that inject some form of multiplayer concept in, there's just a reality that to get that in there, dev time was cut from some other portion of the game.
From the single player aspects.
And usually it's from the single player aspect. And so usually what's interesting is both suffer.
Yep.
So either they pour a ton into the single player experience and then the multiplayer experience is secondary and people are like, well, why is there multiplayer in it at all? This is dumb. Or it's the reverse where the single player it's meant to be a single player focused game, but then they try to do too much with the multiplayer and then they're, well, why do we even have a single player campaign?
Yeah.
This is,
That's what happened with Battlefront 2. It was so like they were saying how they wanted to put in our single player campaign and it turned out to be awful. I think from what I heard from people and stuff like that it just was very mediocre. And that's why I loved the original Battlefront and Battlefront 2 is I was playing that on my PC and then it was actually really fun to play by yourself even if you weren't playing with other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know what it is. It's weird that we just can't find a healthy balance in today's game. There's some games that do. That's not to say like all of them, fail at having just a single player and then a multiplayer, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a balance that I'm optimistic about them finding a balance. I think it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of backlash and a lot of frustration and a lot of crappy games.
Yeah.
Because I think Battlefront 2, Battlefield and Battlefront, I get the names confused. With Battlefront 2, we kind of saw like them push it a little too far, and then people were like, oh, okay, this is what's really going on here. And like even people who were pro microtransactions, we won't get into that, but even people who were pro that sort of thing were like, this is a little bit too far from what we want, and so they got a backlash. So it's I think it's going forward, it's going to be like
people are vigilant.
I think a lot of these companies see like single player games aren't making as much money as multiplayer games. Like the top 10 list I found for 2017 was like mostly either multiplayer games or sports games. And then Breath of the Wild was on there and Horizon Zero Dawn.
Well, and that's so I think that's what's interesting though with that list, and I'd like to see what the top selling single player games were because I think this again, it's the implication. They look at that list and they say, well, all the except for two, which were both Game of the Year contenders, all of these are multiplayer games, so single player games aren't doing well. Which again, I'm oversimplifying what's probably happening in those board meetings when they're making a decision whether or not to pull the trigger on developing a certain game. But you can't help but wonder that they look at that list and they interpret that as, oh, single player games didn't sell well, so therefore multiplayer games are more lucrative. We should do multiplayer games. When instead, I honestly think what it is, single player games just suck. People don't know how to make them. Yeah. Except, the two titles on there are Sony and Nintendo exclusives. And both of which, one, with Breath of the Wild, it was a completely new step for Nintendo. They'd never made a giant open world game like that. It was getting 9s and 10s average. Same thing with Horizon. Sony, it was their new IP that they were launching, and there were a lot of people that were kind of, really unsure.
It was developed by, who was it developed by? Like somebody who had never made an open world game before?
Yeah, too? I thought it was the folks who made Killzone.
Yeah, it was the Killzone people. So they were like first-person shooter.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. So
and then they make
like,
this game, and you're like,
what is going on? And but then it comes out exactly, and everyone's blown away by how good it is. So I think, frankly, they're just. When I think back to last year, there really weren't that many single player games. Me being someone who really enjoys single player games, there really weren't a lot that I was blown away by or really wanting to play.
I think that's another issue is single player games currently can't contend with multiplayer games as far as popularity.
That's what I was going to say. It's the popularity factor. It's not necessarily that there weren't any, because like my whole top 10 or top 5 list I made for the last podcast was literally all single player games. Well, Cuphead is multiplayer, but that's couch co-op.
But exactly. We're talking about online.
But so. I look at how I think of like Persona 5 is probably the best example, because that's a game where like there were a lot of people getting buzz about it, but like it wasn't. But like in terms of like the gaming community, it wasn't garnering any. It was really more through word of mouth that people were like, "This game is amazing. You should play." Because I remember like pretty much every GameStop had. It always has like, staff recommended. Persona 5 was always there, and I always would talk with GameStop employees and be like, "Oh, Persona 5." They're like, "Dude, it's so good." But that's not a game that I think back and be like, "Oh, I saw all these commercials for Persona 5," or "Oh, I saw all these articles about Persona 5." It was pretty like just a RPG that people were excited for, and through the fan base and through the people that did play it, it garnered a lot of popularity.
Yeah, and I think there are games that aren't popular that are really good.
Yes.
But I think overall the problem is that the games that are being made aren't appealing to like, and it's not a bad thing, but the games that are being made aren't appealing to the like, I play Destiny, I play Call of Duty, and I don't really play much else crowd.
Because like Persona 5 I would not recommend to someone who loves Destiny and Call of Duty and stuff like that.
If somebody's got an Xbox and I'm trying to convince them to get a PS4, I'm not going to start off with, "Oh, Persona 5 though, you can't play that." They're going to be like, "I don't want to play that anime game."
Right.
And it's like, it's doing it a disservice, but at the same time, like you got to...
that's not what they're good. Yeah. That's not their like grouping, or that's not their genre of games that they're going to like.
But then you get Horizon Zero Dawn or Zelda, and it's like,
Last of Us, Uncharted.
Yeah. And then you etch them into like story-driven games, and then you present them with like Persona 5 or Nier, and then they're like, "Dang, these are really good."
So the games that are selling on tier with multiplayer games are games that are both really good games and games that can appeal to the massive crowds.
Quality versus quantity.
Yeah, and I think going back to your other point, I agree that I think something's going on with these companies where they're seeing like, what's making money? Like, how can we make more money? And I think they're looking at that list and saying, well, these people are doing multiplayer. Like, maybe we should add multiplayer. And then it's kind of like, then they do it and they realize it makes money. And then they're like, well, more money. It's business.
Yeah.
Business as usual.
That's why I was surprised that Square Enix of all people was the one to say
that kind of thing, that they were like,
we're moving towards a multiplayer. Because it's like and
it's not necessarily multiplayer. It's more like the concept of games as a service.
Yeah,
like
games as a
finding
service,
ways that they can continue the experience, and maybe DLC, maybe.
But I feel like the gaming experience for them has always been like narrative-driven stories and single-player campaigns and stuff like that. So that's why it's interesting that they're thinking that they should go that route. But I mean, if they're losing money and that's what they have to do, then
that's the thing. Is some people.
Well, but again, I think this is what is always confusing to me is Square Enix is losing money. Well, what are the reasons? Final Fantasy 15 maybe didn't sell super well. From everyone that I've talked to that's plugged in a lot of hours, they're like, I got 5 chapters in and I couldn't do it anymore. Just wasn't good. I'm kind of baffled sometimes that the conversation within an internal company, or when they say, well, we're moving towards this because it's more lucrative, because they think that that's going to solve the issue. Just because
they don't realize their game is just not that good.
Maybe your game just suck, just flat out. And, same thing with with the Battlefront 2 fiasco. It's, EA, it's like, well, we didn't implement microtransactions and stuff properly. It's like, yes, it's a huge part of it, but then all the people who are playing it are saying single player campaign isn't even worth it. Multiplayer is really fun, but it's going to last you about a week because of all the systems that are in place that, guide your progression and stuff like that. It's not worth it. So it's just interesting how businesses seem to be dodging responsibility instead of addressing and saying, yeah, our games just haven't really lived up to par recently.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't buy games that I've grown out of this. I don't buy games that I'm really not super convinced that I'm going to like to some capacity. Even if it's even I was really wanting to pull the trigger on Monster Hunter World, but I just couldn't do it because I just knew that it wasn't going to be my style. And I just knew that unless the whole draw to it, ironically enough, was the multiplayer aspect. They were touting that it was supposed to be more focused on getting your friends together. You can
That's
play.
why I was like, I don't like. I like playing with my friends, but I don't like depending on my friends
Exactly.
to play a
That's
video
a big-
game. Like,
exactly.
I want to
And-
be able to destroy monsters on my own.
Correct.
That's why I've been having so much fun with Borderlands too. Because like when we play it together,
Such a good
it's been super fun. But like I've been playing it by myself and still enjoying it because I can still kick butt. And I think that's the big thing for I think all three of us that we can agree on is that multiplayer games online are not bad. Our problem with it in general is that there is a dependency on other people for certain games.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is difficult because like coming from three dudes who love RPGs, Phil loves Pokemon, Josh, I don't know what your favorite RPG would be personally. Well, like Kingdom Hearts.
Sure.
You like Kingdom Hearts, me with Persona. It's like we don't have to, with those games, we've never had to rely on other people for us to beat them. It's always just been like I can play through this, get my skill level to a certain point, and then proceed. And I guess that's not the same with all shooters, but
that's why Call of Duty and Battlefield and all these games are appealing because you don't have to depend on people necessarily.
Yeah.
You just jump on, go in a matchmaking game, and that's why I think they're so successful is because they've streamlined the online matchmaking experience.
yeah.
And it's kind of like games like that have single player campaigns, but it's not a single player game with multiplayer. It's a multiplayer game with single player.
Yeah,
So they're not
yeah.
lying about what they are, or they're not shifting. Because Call of Duty's always just been Call of Duty. Like they have single player, but you know what you're gonna get. It's the same game.
It's the multiplayer.
with updated graphics a little bit, different guns, different character styles, but it sells because it does what it's supposed to do correctly to some extent.
Definitely.
I know your opinion on that, but
I didn't say that.
but
one more time.
what?
Say that one more time. I just want to make sure I.
Like
heard you
Call
right.
of Duty does what it wants to do correctly, and that's why it sells because people know if I buy Call of Duty, I'm going to get the Call of Duty experience.
It's honestly why I buy Pokemon all the time.
Yeah,
any new game,
you know you're going to get a good experience.
Any new game they're going to put out, I'm going to buy because it's Pokemon. And it's difficult because it's like I'm saying this out of like, oh, that's why we don't like it, but there are multiplayer games that aren't as team-based focused. But I think, I don't know. I'm just
I almost like the team-based focused multiplayer games more. It's just that I don't like my single-player experience being dependent on the team-based.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like Overwatch. That's
honestly,
one of the more fun multiplayer games because it's not just about getting... I mean, I love getting kills. I love Call of Duty style shooting, but at the same time, it's less
That's not what wins
frustrating
you the game.
and makes me less angry because I feel like I'm having a fun experience playing with people, and even if I lose, I did something.
Yeah.
Whereas in Call of Duty, it's just literally like run and gun. Like this is war.
Yeah.
You either kill or you get killed.
war.
Like
Yeah.
and it's just chaotic sometimes, which is fun for me. I like that kind of play style, but I can't do it anymore because I just get too angry.
Yeah. No, but
It's too
I know
frustrating.
I know I've brought up Overwatch too many times. So if you are interested, please check it out. It's a dope experience.
Fantastic
But
100% recommend.
that's one of those I think that's exactly it. Is because I really don't have a vendetta against Call of Duty in its own right. I love Modern Warfare 4. That had one of the best single player shooter campaigns I've ever played. Gilead in the Mist is one of the best missions ever. Like any game. That's one of the best missions I've ever played across all genres. And so, like, I have no issue with Call of Duty, and I actually really genuinely enjoyed Black Ops 3. You know,
That's a
when
good
we
one,
played,
yeah.
you know, when we play gun game, it's madness, and it's so funny, but it's just madness, and it's chaos, and it's competitive, and it's interesting, and it's a lot of fun. I think the reason I get heated towards Call of Duty or Battlefield or all these things is, again, the implications behind what they do, and I think it's the systems, and it's kind of like their business mind is shown through by the fruits of their labor, and you know they release a game every year. It's not really much different than the last one. It's which people could point at Pokemon or other franchises and say, well, it's really not that different from the last one. But they at least like try things or they'll do stuff, but I mean, Call of Duty is fine. It's not a bad game in its own right. It's how Activision continues to.
Well, I think
work
too
with
with like Call of Duty, I have no problem if Call of Duty stays in its lane and just keeps doing the same thing because like they're getting the number one sold game like every year basically.
Yeah.
Even in Infinite Warfare was like the number one
Which was
sold
terrible.
game.
Yeah.
And that was the worst selling Call of Duty all the time. It still was number one on the list.
Right.
So it's like
Yeah.
Call of Duty is doing what Call of Duty does. Like, and it's not necessarily improving on the function.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is. I haven't played it in a long time, but I think it does what it does best, basically.
Yeah.
Well, and also they're sometimes advertised too as like this new experience or this craziness, but then it's just the same.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that I see different is that with like Pokemon or with those RPGs and stuff, it's like I see that they don't really present it I mean, it's a new adventure. That's always like the tagline, but it's never like this thing of we're revolutionizing the formula. But I feel like
I don't think Pokemon has ever tried to revolutionize their formula.
Yeah, agreed.
but like there's
I'll
so many
admit that.
games there's so many games that are hyped as like this pushing the boundary or pushing this new thing when they're really not. And I think that's because that's what I've heard with like PUBG. I've heard that it like people are praising it because it's just it's like, you know, it's just so open world and so like just this crazy experience, but in reality it's like it's just a arena shooter where you got to like a survival shooter.
I mean, that is kind of rising though as like a thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Fortnite's
Because
really big,
Fortnite has gotten a battle arena, and other games are kind of like talking about getting it too. So that's like a new rising.
But again,
a rising. I mean, and that's the thing.
exactly
is like,
the thing. Is
I
now
have no
everyone's
problem
doing
with
it.
PUBG. But
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
when
But
all
now
these
everyone is
companies
doing
look
it.
at what is succeeding and just assuming it's succeeding because that's what they're doing.
It's not what everyone
it's
wants.
just gonna it's not what everybody wants in every freaking game. Like, let PUBG be PUBG, let Fortnite be Fortnite, but don't try and add friggin' arena shooting
It's
into
the
like
melding.
Final Fantasy or something. Like,
Right,
don't,
exactly.
like, know what your fan base wants, and maybe they do it and it makes money. And okay, I guess my favorite game is dead. Like, whatever. But
And
it's kind of like I can't blame them for wanting to do it because
But it's
they're seeing
frustrating.
what's making money. But as gamers, I think we all agree it's frustrating to see
Yeah.
single player games suffering because there's such a focus on multiplayer being lucrative.
Well, it's just stupid. To me,
Yeah.
it's just stupid. Why would you look at the success of PUBG or Fortnite and be like, oh, clearly it's because they have a 1v100 style mode in it? If
Yeah.
they put that in the Overwatch, I'd be like, what are you doing? This game isn't designed for this.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's doing, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Phil, and you've been saying it, is do what your game is designed to do. And I think, to me, that is why Nintendo right now, I am all in the Nintendo bandwagon, is because they have just committed to doing what they do best right now. And I think for me, it's making their content stand out even more. Or same thing with Blizzard. Blizzard hasn't gone nuts with Overwatch and being like, all right, we're going to do, you know, this mode and this mode. And it's interesting because they added things like you can do free-for-all. You can do a free-for-all mode. But it's just,
But they're
that's
not, like,
not
the
the
primary-
whole thing.
yeah.
They didn't change, like, all right, we're changing the entire Blizzard formula. This is, you know, these are all they have like 4 or 5 different options, and they keep all these different things going. And they're very vocal with the community of, you know, they try to capture the flag mode, and they were acknowledging, you know, there are certain characters that are super cheap that you could play. So if that's the case, play that character. Find a way to get around it. Find a way to stop the person who's going to try and play that mode. So it's designed to do what that game does, which is force people to find creative solutions within the confines of the game. And I think with things like Call of Duty and things like Destiny and some of the other multiplayer games that try to do this weird balance, I just don't think they do it well enough. You know, so for me with Destiny, I think, like, what is the goal of that game? It's like it's a loot shooter, and I think to do what a loot shooter does well is it's like help people get loot, like make more interesting ways to do it.
Take a note from Borderlands.
Yeah, no, but legit,
That's like for real. I
Borderlands-
thought Destiny was gonna be like Borderlands when it first
Yeah,
came out, because
exactly.
like the loot mechanic looked similar and
Yeah.
the way you play it looked
Yep.
similar. But then it was like,
it's confusing. It's confusing to me, and I honestly think, because I really, like I've said before, I really enjoyed playing through the first Destiny. Just
dude,
some
it's
of the
one- like,
missions and stuff.
It's one of the most like the smoothest
It's
shooting
one of the-
experiences I've ever experienced.
Oh, yeah.
Like Destiny has the shooting, like it just feels so good.
Definitely.
Everything just feels like you're hitting your target and like, oh
Yeah, one of the different varied guns. You've got the different power-ups. There's
yeah,
all
it's got the dope guns.
Yeah,
like,
and and then that's just the guns. It's not even the armor sets and stuff that you have on top of it, and you can play 3 different classes. It's a sweet system, but I feel like this is why I haven't gotten into multiplayer games in the past couple years and generations, is because the system is designed, it almost like fights against itself. Like the mechanics don't, I don't know, like the mechanics don't make it better. Except for certain games that we've been talking about the most. Overwatch's mechanics make it better. You only have a set number of characters you can pick from. However, each of those characters is designed for a very, very, very specific task, whether that's in free-for-all, whether that's in a regular match, whether that's in competitive on a certain... Everything is designed to fit within its system, and you can have creativity within the ecosystem. Whereas with a lot of these other multiplayer games, it's just really confusing. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of playing Destiny and getting armor. Is it to go in the Crucible? Is it to just play higher level strikes? It's like, pick one, or like make it so that in the confines of certain boundaries of how the game is laid out and the different things that you can do, what am I supposed to do next? Like, how can I progress? And so, but I think that all stems from people they're not committing to what their game. It's almost like good art. Good art commits to what it needs. It's not to like what's cool or what's going to be
You're not catering
lucrative.
to people. You're
You're catering to
doing
what the game
it needs to be.
Exactly.
And I think games like Destiny, like, it's a great idea, but I think they executed it poorly, and they've been executing it poorly. And I'm hoping Bungie kind of figures that out and irons it out along the way and makes a better game. But I think with games like Destiny and stuff, it's like it could be good, but they're not executing. They're not doing what it's supposed to be doing fully. Not that I know what it should be doing.
But I mean,
It's something feels off when you're playing it.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
why am I spending 5 hours doing the strike to get guns? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I could play Borderlands and do the same thing and not spend 5 hours doing it.
Right, but
and
again,
I can play it with friends.
And if there's if there's a system in place to make it worth your while, even within the game sphere, to get that gun, because maybe it is, maybe they do have certain buffs or something that you can only, like, you have to get this certain weapon to progress. Like, I think Borderlands has a system like that where there's different, as you progress through the story, there's different zones that have enemies at different levels or have different weaknesses to different things. And so as a result, if you make that a little clearer, all right, if you're going to go fight the Vex, you need to go get these weapons, but to get these weapons, you have to do these missions or like grind in this area. And then, but that might need a previous era. And so then it forces you to like go to these other areas to then make, it's almost like Pokemon. It's like, I could grind and fight through gyms with a really crappy team, or I can play within the system, which is, I'm fighting a gym. Exactly. You have the right types against the right system.
It's such a simple system and it seems tedious like on paper, but I think we're talking that we just want more purpose.
It makes it feel purposeful.
And that's the difficulty with like, that's why like I'm listening to what you're saying. I totally agree. But like, I think the reason why I just never get behind multiplayer games is there's not huge purpose to it, if that makes sense. There's not really purposeful. That's on me personally having that opinion that like, I can't objectively use that for, like against an argument of someone saying, well, like you just don't,
Yeah,
you
and
just
it's
don't understand multiplayer games because I really don't. That's kind of my problem.
Yeah, and I think like last week we were talking about like it's not that we think Destiny is purposeless or Call of Duty is purposeless.
Right.
It's just that because of our style of gaming, which is what we're discussing, we personally feel like we're not getting out of it what we feel like we should be getting out of it. Maybe that's on us, but at the same time, like we have a right to demand better.
Right. Well, because on the flip side,
because it's like we're saying, it's affecting single player experiences.
It's affecting the games
that
we personally enjoy.
Yeah. And so we're passionate about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
but we don't hate people who play games like that because I've talked to people who play Destiny and who play Call of Duty. Like there is reasons to play it because it's fun playing with other people online and coordinating teams to do this 5-hour thing, and then you beat it and you're like, yeah, I beat this thing. But for me, it's like I want, like you were talking about a couple weeks ago, that payoff. And for me, there is no payoff. But for other people, there is payoff.
Right.
And I just don't understand it.
And in the same way, to be fair for us too, because we are coming from a single experience, we all unanimously love Persona 4. However, I guarantee you, if I sat down a player from like a Call of Duty fan or something, who I'm telling,
what the heck is this? Who
I'm telling, like, why do you play Call of Duty? Like, there's no payoff. And then I sit him down and I tell him, like, all right, now you got to spend 3 hours in this dungeon just fighting enemies so you get to a right level. So
and then you got to spend another hour
like, why am I doing this?
Living
There's
your
no
life
payoff.
and playing basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing your
he's
homework.
Like, what is this?
What?
Yeah, like, what is this? This is dumb.
So it's
I
kind of
already
like
went through high school. I don't want to go through it again.
Exactly. So I totally acknowledge that depending on what your sphere is, you're going to have a different preference, and your idea of what a payoff is going to be vastly different. So all this discussion isn't necessarily to pick which preference is correct, but again, like we said from the beginning of the conversation, it's all about the implication, and it's all about looking, that's the goal of our podcast. It isn't necessarily to look at the one thing and say, that sucks, you shouldn't be about that, but it's to look, like, what's the big picture? The big picture is, because PUBG came around and is doing PUBG stuff, and PUBG is just being PUBG. But then Fortnite looks at it and they're like, We could do that. We could do that. And they literally stole it. Like there are literally articles written that Fortnite literally ripped off PUBG.
Yeah.
And so now you have people,
I've seen other games talking about.
Yeah, and now
Battle
other
Arena
games.
mode too.
Exactly. But it's like battle royale mode, and so it's like you're telling me that the industry isn't feeding off itself. Like that's exactly what it's designed to do.
And that's wherein lies the problem, is that we personally enjoy these single player games with these like story elements. Well, that's my opinion. I like those elements. We all do. But the big problem is that's like there may be a possibility that it'll go into what do you call it? Like I just can't word right today, but like obscurity. It'll fade into obscurity because the entire industry is, like Josh said, like feeding off itself. And it's basically like, well, they're doing this, so we'll do this, and well, then they're doing that. Why don't we do that with our game? And then like all the other single player titles that are like, we're still here. Everyone is in the cloud.
They're in the trend.
The cloud trend that is, the multiplayer worlds that are just constantly bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, like looking at it from an upper perspective now, because it's kind of like with any entertainment industry or whatever, it's always like the argument between entertainment and art. And I think for us, we tend towards like, we view video games as more than just entertainment. Like we love playing video games to like chill and relax on a good day or hanging out with friends, but we also view video games as a way of experiencing stories, as a way of experiencing different worlds. Yeah, 100%. And we all have reasons why we enjoy video games, whereas maybe people who play multiplayer games don't necessarily care as much about a video game. I mean, people who play Call of Duty tend to also be the same people who are like, oh, 4K is everything sort of people. But that's less about the art than about like just the graphical fidelity. Mm-hmm. And so I think for us, we enjoy the creative, artistic aspect of the games that we play. And sometimes it's basically just like the pop music versus other music. Like sometimes it just feels cheap. Sometimes it feels
Hollywood,
not genuine. Like they're capitalizing on our favorite thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why we get so passionate about it. It's like there's nothing wrong with multiplayer games. But like you said, the implication is that single player may start to suffer because of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the question we're trying to answer.
And I think it's interesting. If you were to Google right now, I'd be willing to bet, if you were to Google top 10 games of all time of history, not a single multiplayer-centric game would be on that list. I guarantee you. And I could be wrong. Someone, but like I'm willing to bet if maybe there might be one or two. I can't think of anything specific unless you would count Halo. Like maybe Halo would make it on that list. But
even then, that one's very story driven.
But it's very narrative driven in the single player campaign, and it's about the world. That's
the type of game that nailed the single player multiplayer experience.
And that's my thing.
They knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they did it for like 3 or 4 games in a row.
That was my gripe with Destiny, was that I was that's my expectations, and like I always feel like when you're coming into a game, you shouldn't have super high expectations, no matter what it is, because then if it doesn't meet your standards, then you're going to be more critical of it.
Oh gosh.
But I personally feel like Destiny was just such a like missed opportunity of like I was saying, if you had a narrative similar to Halo and then add the multiplayer aspect, like that game would be amazing. I would love playing it, but the single player is so like I think the missions are really fun, but like the story itself and the lore is just not interesting to me.
It's one of the memes in the very beginning of the first one is you go and you talk to the Seeker, and he's just about to dive into the history of everything that's going on. I don't have time to explain. And he literally says, I don't have time to explain all this to you. I'm just going to tell you need to go out and shoot stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's immediately for the rest, or for some of us, that was the cue of this is all there's no point.
And that was
the
thing in Destiny 2 that drew me in, was there actually was a little bit more story, and it was a little bit more interesting, and the
fascinating.
Because like in the first one, if you wanted to get the lore, you had to really dig in, like the cards or whatever.
Ugh, why?
You had to like dig hard.
You should be able to play through the game and experience the
Yeah,
narrative.
but in 2, there was actually a narrative, which was interesting, but then it just becomes like, oh, once the story's done, now you just do hour-long raids and 5-hour-long raids, and then it's like...
Yeah. So you're chuckling at this list.
I looked up 5 best-selling... Actually, I looked up 10, but they gave me 5.
I didn't say
not best-selling.
Not best-selling, but literally like if there was a list for the best games of all time. So like from a quality perspective, what are the...
I mean, that's really subjective, isn't it?
I mean, it is, but I think like critically acclaimed, what are the best games of all time? I'd be willing to bet that...
Like best-selling was very interesting. It was like Super Mario Bros. number 5, then GTA 5, then Minecraft, Then I don't remember the second one, but then Tetris was number 1.
Interesting.
So it was very weird all over the board. I'm gonna look up best games of all time.
Because I definitely know like Ocarina of Time should still be on there. Because I think still people say that's like one of the greatest games.
Yeah, literally, I opened the article and number 1 was Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ocarina of Time.
It's just a random article. This is
Smash
like,
Bros. Brawl,
Interesting.
Skyrim, Minecraft. I mean, this is the top10s.com, so take it for what you will.
Yeah.
Super Mario 64, GTA 5, Red Dead Redemption, Super Mario Bros., Majora's Mask, The Last of Us. That's the 10. I'm not going to go through all 50.
So GTA 5 was on there.
Yeah,
But
I mean that game
again,
has been
GTA
selling
5
for like 3 console generations or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
and
crazy.
it's still like on top 10 lists today for top selling game.
right.
Like what the heck?
Well, and again, but I think that's
But they
a
capitalized on
perfect
the
example.
games as a service model.
Right, and I think to me that's the perfect example of what the focus is the single player. Like there is a large single player narrative. I mean, I played it. I didn't really like it, but you know,
It's basically
What
just,
if? Oh, excuse me.
it's just
when
fun
it first
punching people
started-
on the street.
oh my gosh, well,
Running
when
people over,
Zach
okay.
and I were playing one summer. We had copies and we were playing online together, and we were just
so
dying
much fun.
laughing because it was just so stupid fun.
Well, I think that's
One
the
of my-
thing.
oh,
Sorry, you go.
Sorry.
I was
You
gonna
sounded
I was gonna analyze. You tell your story.
Okay. Just a fun story to like give a little brief
comedy Brit.
comedy Brit.
Comedy
Comedy Brit.
Comedy Brit.
Yeah.
Comedy bit.
Yeah, well,
When we were playing, there was all these NPCs running around, and there was a dude that literally, kid you not, like this NPC looked like Steve from Blue's Clues, and he had like the green striped polo and everything. I was like, "Oh my god, Steve, it's me!" And I started running towards him, and like the NPC literally like. I don't know if there was something with the game, but he literally ran like faster than normal NPCs do. It's just like, and I literally stole someone's motorcycle and just ran him down.
well, you
That's
were like
hilarious.
chasing him, and all I remember is you were chasing him and you were trying to get him, and then you got on a motorcycle and he was running faster, and so
Yep.
we literally watched him like run up this mountain and just like keep going.
And I was driving faster
we were
and
so
faster, and he
baffled.
just picked up speed.
That's
we were
great.
so baffled, like
Because he's got a letter. He's got to
Yeah.
open that letter.
See, I feel like with a game like GTA 5, like it sucks in my mind what happened to it because, like you keep saying, it's an indication of what's popular and what's coming down the pipeline for other games. But at the same time, it's like telling stories like that. It's almost like maybe GTA Online is what GTA was meant to be in the first place. Just people doing dumb crap,
going-
running
yeah.
people down, flying planes,
No
or
one
flying
plays
motorcycles.
the story. They drive
Yeah.
around and they shoot
Yeah,
cops and they
so
do
maybe
stupid
GTA Online
stuff.
is what
Yeah.
that game was supposed to be. Like,
Exactly.
just running around gunning people down with motorcycles flying through the air on an eagle or something. I don't know
Yep,
what the heck they're
exactly.
doing.
No,
or
more or
flying a
less.
banana car through the air or something.
No, I mean, like, but if you look at all the Let's Players and stuff who play that game, they do the ridiculous modes where you have to, you know, jump out of a plane and then the other guys in the planes have to try and hit them on the windshield. You
so
know,
the story
it's-
was never like the main point of
Yeah,
that game.
exactly. It's
Because I
just
remember every time I played
stupidness.
it was just like, oh, let's see how much trouble I can get into and then see how easy it is to get away from the cops.
Exactly.
Or like, I remember there was an Air Force base and we like found a way that you could ramp the car and over to the edge. And then we got into the Air Force base, and then we were like, "Okay, let's steal a plane." And we kept trying to like jack a plane before they like killed us, and we finally got it. We just fly this plane out of an Air Force base. So it's that
it's
kind of stuff
stupid,
where
yeah.
you're like, maybe this happening to GTA was fine, but then there are articles of like they promised single player DLC that was supposed to be good, and then they never released it because it was
They
more
saw how
economically
multiplayer-
viable.
That's
Shark
the perfect
cards.
example of
Yep.
giving into the popularity aspect of like, and I mean, for GTA, that's can't really complain because it is super fun online, but that's like the perfect example of,
Ooh,
Phil, speak to me.
speak to me. Can you hear me, Dad?
Mr. Potter.
Mr. Potter.
Mr.
My,
I don't have your money.
my lips bleeding, Bert.
My lips bleeding, Bert.
It's me, Mary.
It's me, Mary.
Don't you recognize me? It's a Wonderful Life for those that don't know.
It
for
is a
all
Wonderful Life.
You youngins out there.
Youngsters.
Peter.
Hey, Peter.
No, that has
Hey,
nothing
Peter.
to do. That has
me.
nothing to do
Hey,
with.
Peter.
I think we're all getting delirious.
I know. I'm losing my mind.
So
right
what
now.
were you gonna say?
I forgot now because
GTA cutting out the single player campaign.
cutting. That's the perfect example of like because like there's not a lot of tangible examples of, you know, there's more of a focus on multiplayer. So first, you know, single players getting neglected. That's like a perfect example of. It may not be for like games that are focused, like have been made to be single player games, but in terms of like overall focus on single player games has been neglected a tiny bit, and that's like the perfect example of that. They saw that people like the online more of in GTA, and they're like, all right, we're just going to invest in that instead. And then people who wanted better single player campaigns are like, well, weren't you going to do that? They're like, well, yeah, but isn't this more fun? This is more fun. Go play with your friends.
Go buy shark cards and buy an eagle that you can fly and
Yeah,
kill your
exactly.
friends.
It's
like,
like,
I
yeah.
don't have any friends.
Buy a digital high-rise apartment.
That's exactly what.
and that's
exactly what we did.
that's
Yep.
exactly what it is.
Yeah,
So
definitely. It's
yeah,
tough.
I think multiplayer is interesting, and single player. I don't think single player is dying.
No, and
No.
I was just
I think
looking.
we're definitely
if
a
we want
little-
to jump into the
I was gonna say, I think
briefly into
we-
the no.
We answered the question in the sense of
That whole time was a big long like, no, we don't think it's
yeah.
dying.
In some ways, it was a no, but because we don't think it's dying, but I think we have reasons to be
There are
worried.
concerns.
There are concerns about trends in games that could be coming down the pipeline.
Yep.
Concern is
But
a
I
good
think
word.
what?
I said concern is a good word.
Yeah,
That
we're
it's not dying, but we are concerned that there is going to be an effect on them.
Yeah.
Or on the single player
exactly.
experience.
But I think there's also a lot of hope and places to be optimistic about the industry as well. And even though maybe some of our favorite genres will die because, like Dead Space or something, I've never played Dead Space, but people are mad about that.
No, but that's a perfect example. Is they went
Yeah.
all freaky with the narrative and and freaky because it's a horror game, but like
Yeah.
they deviated very sharply from the original formula
Yeah.
with multiplayer
and then they shut down the
stuff.
studio, so
Yeah,
it's
and then
no
it-
longer
then
gonna
it
get
died
made
because
it's not financially viable.
Exactly.
Um,
Well, I heard
But-
it's also because Dead Space 3 sucked.
yeah. That's why they deemed it not financially viable because they made a crappy
Right.
single player experience.
Exactly.
Like you were saying,
Right.
like make a better game and you won't.
That won't
Not make
happen.
money.
That shouldn't happen.
But I also think there's a lot of reasons for us to be optimistic about single player experience
Definitely.
going forward. Like you said with the Switch, I think that's probably one of the biggest indications of single player still being immensely viable.
Well, that one's very focused on couch co-op too, not necessarily. It is
Which I would count as
multiplayer, but-
single player, but
Yeah.
in the sense that it's not dependent on like an internet connection and you can play the game alone.
And it's not like 500 people playing with you at once or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I agree.
Definitely. I think too what's cool and Z, when you were, I think honestly it was your comments last week about indie developers that got me more excited. So I picked up, I haven't played it yet, I need to download it still, but it's called Night in the Woods. It's more of
Ooh,
a
that one looked interesting.
Yeah, it's more of a narrative based kind of game.
It's more
and,
all narrative from what I've seen. But
yeah, but
is it
seems
kind of like
interesting.
is it kind of like a Firewatch type game? Like it's
I think
a
so.
walking simulator
Yeah,
narrative.
but like
Yeah,
different
kind
art
of.
style and
I like
stuff like
games like
that.
that because it's
So
a
I think
different
it's
experience.
yeah, it's I'm excited to try out a different experience and to do that. But I think, as I was mentioning earlier in the same point, that multiplayer stuff exploded as a result of technology advancements and
Yep.
different connections, and every house has Wi-Fi almost and stuff like that. But I do think in the same vein though that as technology has advanced, it's opened up the doors for regular people to make some of the best games that have ever been made with almost no budget. So I think that's equally interesting that we do have games like Cuphead where it was a small studio of 10 people max. We have games like Owlboy was probably a pretty small studio
Yeah.
as well, I want to say.
that was a small studio. Hat in Time was a small studio.
So, I mean, you have more options and more doors that are opening up. And I think what's cool is for as many people as will say there's no room for single player games anymore, there will be equally more people saying like what we're saying, which is, no, you just make sucky ones, we're going to make a good one.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah,
do it,
that's-
and then it sells crazy well.
and maybe single player experiences move out of AAA for a while, but then we get tons of good games in the double A or whatever they call the next tier down and indies. Like with the Switch, we're getting like a frick ton of indie games.
When some
And
of
just because it's
which-
indie doesn't mean it's crappy.
Right.
And that's
And-
kind of always been my mindset is like, oh, it's
Absolutely.
indie. I'm not playing indie games. I don't
Yeah.
have time for that.
Yeah.
But now it's like, man, there's like
They're
a lot
looking
of cool,
better. Yeah, they're looking better
cool
than
games.
a lot of the AAA. I'm
Yeah.
honestly, I was more excited about a lot of the the indie games that are coming to Nintendo than I was about some of the titles that they announced that were actually the big AAA titles.
Yeah.
We're getting Hollow Knight, which is supposedly one of the
it's
amazing.
very good. I played a lot of it.
There's all sorts of other Nintendo exclusive indie games, and I think that's an interesting point too. Is I definitely was in the same boat, Phil, of indie just to me spelled low budget game that hipster gamers play because it's like,
Yeah.
well, no one plays this game. I play this game, and
It's
that's
an
like
art
what
piece.
indie.
You have to respect
you
it
have
for-
to you have to
You have to have an
understand.
high IQ to play this.
Yeah,
game
exactly.
and understand it.
Gotta watch Rick and Morty before you play this game.
Yeah, right. So that kind of stuff. But I think more and more we're seeing, I think in the same vein, that there are implications of what AAA games are doing. I think there's also major implications about what smaller devs are doing.
And I think that's the thing is, as money takes over in the upper tiers of gaming, I think passion and creativity and art are going to take over in the lower tiers.
Yeah.
And it's going to be this like force that fights against each other.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't make as much money, but that's
But
not
they just
what
still
this is
they
about.
continue making the good games that they have.
Yeah.
now.
And this, like, we're arguing that it shouldn't be about money in some ways. Like, I don't blame companies for wanting to make money, but at the same time, sometimes you have to sacrifice the money to make the art, which I think is what's happening now.
And
is
the
there's
quality.
all these,
Yeah.
and just because it doesn't make enough money doesn't mean it's not a good quality game. And so I think there's a paradigm shift of it's separating, but I think it'll start to fight against each other again, and people will start making quality games.
When I think what's
And they
going to
already
happen,
are.
yeah. When I think if I had to make a prediction about what's going to end up happening, and I think this is pretty standard for most systems. I think that's why, like, not to go too social commentary, but I think that's why I get kind of confused about people getting so angry about certain things. Is it's just a natural cycle. Stuff seems so much worse than it is, and then this one thing happens, and then that creates this other thing, and then those things together get rid of the sucky thing that was there, and then everything kind of evens out, and it's fine. But then another thing happens, and it's like, oh, this has never happened before.
It's a cyclical pattern.
Exactly,
Of
and
getting caught up in
the hysteria of, oh my gosh,
hysteria,
it's the
yeah.
end of the world. Oh my gosh, there's all this bad
Yeah.
stuff. It's like, people have been saying that for forever. I mean, video games literally almost died in the early 90s with...
No,
even earlier.
And even earlier, too.
Because
It was
Nintendo-
with E.T.
It was literally
That was a really
Nintendo.
interesting documentary. If you want to check it out, I think it's the video game, the movie.
Yeah.
was what it was called. Super interesting. It's narrated by Sean Astin, guy who plays Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the
interesting.
Rings. So very good.
Yeah, Atari like almost killed gaming industry.
Yeah, the
And
Atari.
then Nintendo was like, no.
Yeah, they put
And
out
the
the
home
like,
console.
Yep,
Yeah.
if they had not put out the NES, literally the gaming industry probably would have died they were just kind of putting out what they want, and gaming's in a very different state now, which I find interesting. And
I
that's
think
why
in
would
some ways
love
it's similar though, because like
That's-
games
yeah, that's
that
what I
are
was thinking
popular
is-
are becoming more and more trivial. Like even games where you're like Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor, like that should be a dope game. Like being able to play Lord of the Rings, but it's just like games like that are being saturated with the same weird
Multiplayer
loot
crap.
Same
mechanics.
formula,
Like
yeah.
stop
Yeah,
making
exactly.
these weird loot games. Like let
That
me
are
just
single player, but like not kind of... Yeah,
and I think it's in
very-
some ways they're like saturating it with all this crap, which is really popular and making a lot of money. But I'm guessing people are gonna get sick of it eventually.
Yeah.
But then there's the other side that's continually growing. So I think it's the same thing where like Nintendo was like, no, here, and then it was just like boom.
And then everyone sees that it's good.
Versus now it's like all these indie developers and people who are passionate about video games are like, and then it's gonna start to rise
They
again.
make that exact same sound at their
that's
board
the exact
meetings.
sound.
Like,
Yeah, definitely.
And so I think we're seeing different because AAA games are still AAA games and are making buttloads of money. But
And I feel like this is, and as much as we're talking, we're in the hysteria of like the single player game. We're like, oh, they're dying. They're not. Like, it'll be fine, because what's
Yeah.
going to happen is Bethesda is going to find some revolutionary thing to put in the new Skyrim, and it's going to sell buckets.
Yep.
And then everyone's going to lose their minds about like, we need to do something like that. And then you're going to get a bajillion single player games from all these random companies who never did single player
Yeah,
again.
copies
And then
of
you're going to
Elder
get the
Scrolls
reverse.
6,
So
and
then
then-
multiplayer is multiplayer games dying, or like in the internet age, are we no
Yeah.
longer concerned about and it's going to be the exact
and I think there's
same
a
thing.
lot of like industry tanks that are still committed. Like I found articles for Bethesda saying like they think single player games are still valuable and they want to save single player gaming. Microsoft even said that. That's debatable, but
Yeah.
they
They need to be excited about games at all.
Yeah,
They're
but like
kinda in a tough spot.
Phil Spencer said, like he still thinks single player experience is a cornerstone of the gaming, whatever that manifests itself into. He still said it. And then CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077 has said
So
like
excited
we're
for that
not,
game.
contrary to popular belief, we're not giving into that crap basically. And then Sony has also said multiple times like we believe that the single player gaming experience is still alive and well,
Yep.
and we're going to keep producing good games,
Yeah.
which is evidenced by actual.
and that balances out. That's like, how many companies was that? 4?
Yeah, 4.
3?
And I think there was more. I just didn't
Yeah.
do research into everybody who's saying it, but there's plenty of people who are still like, no, we still believe this is important. And like the Microsoft one, the Bethesda one, we're like, we see that it's not necessarily economically viable, but we also have a passion for gaming, and we see that it's important to make these games.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that too, what is going to be interesting to see is those single player, all those companies that you listed stay in their lane. You know, Bethesda isn't out trying to make a multiplayer shooter now because everyone's making, you know, AAA shooters. Yep. They do their own thing. And so I think to me that's the thing that they need to crack, and I think that's why it's very fast. Our world in media is in a very interesting place because I think there's been a strange shift in demystifying that the big company equals quality. You know, so you have like, especially in the news world, like news outlets are really freaking out about YouTube and you know, people like Dave Rubin and you know, Philly D and all these people, because they're doing news and people aren't watching their stuff anymore. But then again, it's the same issue of like, well, YouTube's ruining the news. It's like, no, your crappy attitudes and your crappy reporting is ruining your company, and they're going to people who are actually doing what you should be doing in your job, but you're not. And so, same thing with games. It's like, well, I guarantee you the people who are probably freaking out the most about like, well, you know, single player games are dying, are the companies that have made the borderline single player game, and it tanked, and they're like, well, no one plays these games anymore. It's like, yeah, because it sucked and it was terrible.
Yeah, it's like the people who put out terrible single player games are like, well, single players are just dying, so we're not going to do it. It's like, well, no, you
your
just
game
made
was trash.
And that's what I kind of see with like Square Enix, which is interesting because like Final Fantasy 13 was awful. And that was like, and they were making weird decisions because they made like 2 sequels after one of their worst, Final Fantasy games, and now they're saying like, well, if single player just isn't working out, and we want to go for a different direction. It's like, well, your single players weren't really good, so
yeah,
maybe you should work on that.
Looking at the issue, I think the whole thing boils down, and it's really like anything in the world, and I think that's why
just par for the course.
Yeah, and I think that's why I get so irritated.
Really, our conversation means nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
everything we've said,
everything we said is just obvious.
Yeah, but for real though, it just seems baffling that people don't actually look at the problem, but then they get mad when they come up with a solution, and then the solution doesn't work. It's like, yeah, because you didn't actually address what the issue is. You just kind of figured out what like fits your own interpretation of the situation and then tried to fix it, you know? So like EA complaining about like, well, Dead Space was bad. So it's like, so they're, you know, it's bad. Or like Andromeda, like some of the stuff that was around Andromeda. What was the reason behind all of it? They released it too early. Half the stuff that they fixed got fixed in like 2 patches. Yep. Which is like, came out what, 2 months back to back or something like that. So if you just delay the game, you know, it's like, oh, but like, you know, people aren't into the, you know, Mass Effect got, you know, crapped on and people hated and all this stuff. It's like, because it was your fault. Like, you ruined it.
I know. It's like every time they make an excuse, you're just thinking like,
that was you.
We hated it because it was a crap game, not because it was single player. Not
yeah,
because,
exactly.
Yeah, like, we hated it because you gave us a bad game.
Right. And you specifically did things that contradicted ensuring its quality. Yeah. i.e. releasing it too early. You know, so I gotta take a dump. So we should wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, we
after all your ranting and all your stuff, like I
thought you were gonna say like I gotta cool down a bit or something.
Yeah,
but no, he's like, I gotta take a dump.
Gotta cool down, take a dump.
Usually it's Phil who has to pee. Now it's
I don't even have to pee, and I had 2 cups of coffee.
That's
amazing. Way to go.
But yeah, I think like you said, like it's not so much that single player is dying; it's just that people are making crappy single player games, and
not everyone is.
Not everyone, but people are. Like there are people.
The
who
loudest voices in the industry seem to be making crappy games and then complaining about how single player games don't sell.
Yeah, and so they're like, "Oh, we're doing multiplayer now," and then that makes money, and they're like, "Well, they're making money, I'm gonna make money," and so it's like this encroaching thing. But like you said, with anything, there's also another encroaching force saying, "Well, if you're not gonna make good games, we're gonna make our own good games," and it might not be the games we want right now, but it's the games we deserve.
God bless America.
God bless America. I love you all. Peace.
Single player.
No, but yeah, I think the answer is no. They're not dying, but things are changing.
We have concerns.
Things are changing, but we're optimistic.
And we still got our old school games to play through, and our
Super
we have
Nintendos
a
and our lifetime
console.
I could probably like take this top 10 list, and that would last me like 10 years.
Probably.
Like just to beat them all, complete them, and get the full experience. Like Frick, man. So
You good.
Yeah.
You set,
Yeah.
son. It's all good.
So yeah,
I got so many GameCube games to play. It'll be fine.
Yeah, you do. I
It'll
should
be fine.
steal some of yours
No,
so
no,
I
no,
can
no,
actually.
no.
I'd actually put them to use.
No, 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 no,
no. Yeah, I got a SNES Classic for Christmas, and I still haven't played any of the good RPGs on that yet.
I don't know if I said this it was like a couple weeks ago. It was like early January, but I picked it up and I've always wanted to beat Star Fox and I never have. I made it on like the easier run because there's like different paths you can take. I went to the easier path. I made it to the final world and I fought the final boss, but I could not. Bless you. I could not beat it. That game is so freaking hard.
It is, but it's very fun.
But it was fun. It was very fun to play. I literally played it for like an hour and made it to the final world, and I was like, wow, this is a very strange experience to feel like I got a good amount of stuff out of a very short run.
Yeah,
Which I'm all for. That's cool.
That is a
Absolutely.
super nostalgic game.
Yeah,
Star
it is.
Fox.
Oh yeah, it is.
I've never played Starbucks before.
The OG.
I didn't even know
Did
Star
you
Fox.
say I've never played Starbucks? It sounded like you said, I've never played Starbucks.
Oh,
before.
Starbucks. That's
Starbucks. I never played Starbucks
I've
before.
never played no Starbucks.
I didn't even know he was a thing until Smash Bros or whatever. And I was like, "Who's that little fox dude?"
That's how I was with Earthbound. I didn't.
Really?
I picked up Ness as a character and I just started destroying with him. And I was like, what game is he from? I don't even know what he's from. And then I found Earthbound and I was like, oh, okay. And then it ended up becoming one of my favorite games.
Bada bing.
It's so good.
I need to play that on the SNES.
It is such a weird, trippy game, but it's so much fun. The
Nice.
world is just so weird and goofy. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
You fight hippies, you fight zombies, you fight mad street signs, you fight fire hydrants.
Oh my gosh, that sounds
Those are all
fantastic.
actual enemies.
That sounds great.
It's got some
amazing.
very strange conspiracy theories about the messaging of the game too.
Yep.
So it's kind of fun.
Really?
There's literally a group. What are they? They're like the Carpenter. I forget their name, but they're literally in the American release. Fun little localization fact. There's this group that's basically based off the Ku Klux Klan, because you go. It's a fun mission. You go to this like one town that's literally been like overtaken by this cult, and you gotta like defeat the dude who's in charge, and they look like Clue members, but like in the American version they added like a little puffball to the end of their hats, so it's not as like blatantly obvious, but fun little interesting fact.
That's hilarious.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Any other last final points before we?
I don't want that to be the
Shut her
ending.
down.
We're talking about the
Yeah,
something
the
that
KKK.
similarly looks like the Ku Klux Klan.
No,
That's funny.
it is what it is.
Yeah, I got nothing. So, thanks for listening, guys.
Ooh, some quick updates. Do we want to tell them about the secret surprise?
First, we should say
No.
we're ending, and then we should go for another 50 minutes just so Busco has
Yes.
something to listen to.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. Because he
He
texted,
texted us.
yeah.
He's like, "You literally said you're done, and then you went for 50 more minutes." We're like, "Yeah, that's how
that
we do it."
happens.
What's wrong? Yeah, what's wrong with that? Just keep listening.
Like, what's wrong with that?
You said you were going to be done, so why aren't you done?
Oh gosh. Now
Sorry,
we're gonna hear about that.
Oh, now we're gonna hear flag about him.
Dang it! And
Sorry,
now you know
boss.
specifically he's gonna do it because he heard. He's like, I heard you talking about it.
Yeah, I heard you talking about it.
Now we're calling you out. We're not that popular enough yet. It's okay.
Oh, that's
That's
hilarious.
awesome. Do we want to tell him about that thing? Do we? Because we might try and do
Isn't
that
that
this month.
no?
Okay.
That's
No, not yet.
Okay.
We'll
Well,
say
wait.
that.
But
we got a little surprise
we
coming
do.
down the pipeline.
We do have
maybe,
a little
so.
surprise for our listeners coming down the pipeline
Yeah.
in the next couple weeks potentially. But we do, if you haven't noticed, have a new logo for the podcast, which is this like punk emo Game Boy guy. And so if you are interested in supporting the show, one, thank you. You don't have to. We're glad. We love doing this every Sunday.
we don't really want you to either, but
I mean, if you're feeling like
if you
it.
feel like it, it's fine.
But you can check out redbubble.com. They sell all sorts of cool stuff that you can get, and we have some branded gear on there. So we've got
you can
some
get t-shirts,
mugs,
journals,
journals,
posters,
and we
Posters?
have
posters.
our logo character on a t-shirt and a bunch of stuff. We have just our font and the neon blue and yellow, like green, lime green color that are also from the
Pretty dope.
yeah, they're from there. That's like just the text only. And then we also have a variation character of the logo who's like bald but has like a beard. instead. So
Bald and
I'm
beard.
hoping to also make some other designs.
Phil in
So if
10
you are a
years.
listener and you have like a
What are
spur,
you saying?
so what?
Saying you're going bald, buddy.
I said bald and beard, and he's like, "That's Phil in 10 years." I'm like, "What are you saying?"
What are you saying?
I got that widow's peak though.
Widow's Peak.
Widow's
Oh
Peak.
no. But if you legit, like Zach joked, but it's true, we are not big enough yet to have to be concerned about listening to everybody. So if you would like to write in an idea for like a character that you're like, I would totally get one of those shirts or one of those guys if they looked like the Fallout dude, I can make that. So
Let's go.
let me know. So I thought about
Can I
doing-
request that?
Yeah, I can.
Can I request something?
Sure.
No.
I want it to be,
I can make a Ness one where he's got a little cap. Oh, bro. Little hat.
dude, I would
Can you
buy
make
that.
one that looks like me with like a little hat and a beard?
I could do that.
Can you
go.
do one with me? It's got glasses and a beanie hat.
I could do that.
You're just gonna. Everyone, please just buy.
Could you
like,
make him look like Pickle Rick?
I was just no.
can
I was
do
literally
that.
about to say like.
Pickle
Can you
Rick.
make him look like Stu Pickles from Rugrats?
Oh, dude, that'd be funny
Oh,
with a
let's
little
go.
hearing aid.
No, that's yeah, Grandpa Stu.
Yeah.
Grandpa Stu.
No, is it Stu? No,
Yeah.
Grandpa
wasn't
Lou.
Stu the dad?
No, I
Yeah,
think
Stu.
it's-
No, Stu's the dad. Then Lou, Grandpa Lou, is
I have
the
no
grandpa.
idea.
I'm almost
So
positive.
anyway, so if you do have a,
So yeah, you can request things, and
Yeah, so if
Josh
you-
will make them. Zach and I can't do anything.
yeah,
Nope.
so I will. I'd
we'll
be
just
willing to make.
we'll give you a little shout out.
Yeah, so I'm willing to
do a
make some
little dance.
variations if you want to request one, and I will throw it up and I will let you know. So you just need to send an email to popculturepunks@gmail.com, and you can also send in episode requests if there's a topic you'd like us to discuss.
We'll discuss
Um,
almost anything.
Yes,
But we can't promise we won't be opinionated.
yeah,
about
that we
it.
won't
Yeah.
tear it apart.
Yeah.
So
If it's stupid, we'll let you know.
we'll let you know. Don't you worry.
But don't let that scare you.
Just a
So-
response emails like that's stupid.
If you're listening to
Culture
this,
punks.
if you're listening to this, you probably already know where to find this podcast. But if you would like to tell a friend, you can tell them to find it on Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, which I actually might be phasing out saying that because TuneIn Radio is kind of a mess. So Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Play. So you
and
can
maybe YouTube forthcoming.
and YouTube in the near future.
Keep your
So
eyes open.
other than that, that's
some
all we
goofs.
got, friends. I'll let Phil close it out.
See ya, suckers. Thanks for listening. We will catch you next week, and we'll be a lot more positive next week. Stay posy, boys. What up, party people?
Toss it in the wind and forget yesterday. But the crowd comes singing back with that same old song. You've got bills you gotta pay. What about job security? But I've been dreaming about packing it all up. Cause the war in me just won't relent till there's nothing left but dust. So what do you do when the world starts time.